Hey guys, Teeple here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Dunkerque, the Tier 5 Premium French Battleship. Just came out today. You can see I'm running Du Fournet. I don't have any Battleship Commanders, and I'm not inclined to put points into Du Fournet at this time. If it turns into another George Dewey situation where I don't have a Battleship Commander for 6-7 months, then maybe I'll put some points into them down the line. But for now, I got just a level 7, so I do want you to keep that in mind when you're watching these games. I do have a couple games to check out. The first one I'm just going to be kind of going over the ship mainly. If there's time left over, might start breaking down the game a little bit. Second game, we'll just kind of talk about the play-by-play in that one. Now, the Dunkerque, right off the bat, you'll notice 8 guns on the ship, 2 turrets. They're all on the front of the ship, so it's kind of a forward firing ship. You can see right there, there's looks like, you know, 3 sets of secondaries in the back, and then maybe there's some other secondaries scattered throughout. It's kind of a bizarre setup. I had a couple of people speculating on my Discord, or at least discussing the possibility of a secondary build on this. Flat out, do not even consider that. I mean, I don't recommend secondary builds, period. Much to the chagrin of a couple of people, that's alright. But definitely not on this. I mean, the secondaries activate in oddball situations where you're already in trouble. You cannot rely on them. If you have ships behind you, they'll activate. If you get close into and have ships on the side, they'll activate. But, you know, disregard the secondaries, in my opinion, when you're putting the ships together. Now, I run aiming systems mod and prop module on this currently. My thinking is with the kind of the forward firing guns, which kind of promotes a bow on play style. A lot of times when you're utilizing those tactics, you kind of want to be stopping or going slowly. So my current thinking is kind of giving a boost to that acceleration will help the ship in certain situations, and it seems to work pretty good. I do like to run steering gears on a lot of the battleships, and I might experiment with that further, but for now that's how I have the ship set up. Now, it's a very fast battleship, 29.5 knots. And when I'm going over the stats, keep in mind I'm comparing these on my sheet that has all my ship's current stats. So that's taking into account commanders and mods and all that stuff. So your numbers might vary. And again, because I have a low-level generic commander on the ship, it might seem, you know, kind of to have some detriments that might not actually be there when you have a better functioning commander influencing how the ship performs. So do keep that in mind as we go on here. But the 29.5 knots, considerably higher than most of the ships at the tier. You do have the Fuso and Mutsu, which are you know, 22.8, 24.6 in my builds. All the other ones are kind of mired in the 21 to 22 range. So that's an advantage. Fire chance is the highest at the tier. I got 36% of mine, which is useful when you're firing at angled battleships. These guns, which we'll talk about a little bit more going forward, they're not high caliber guns, they're not great penetration guns, so shooting battleships that are angled where a lot of battleship guns would be able to just kind of punch through, still do some damage, they're less effective when angled. So it's a good idea to be actively switching your shells depending on the situation. The fire chance does help out. Now the fire, or the HE damage, isn't spectacular. This Du Fournet character's got a little bit of a boost to all the HE damages, so it got bumped up. Mine's 48.67, which is probably about 4,800, I would guess, base or something like that. 47.50, whatever it is. I mean, that's still relatively low. It's only higher than the Bayern. All the other ones are in the 5s to 6,000s range. And the AP damage, frankly, extremely low, 9,700 on my builds, compared to something like, well, the Mutsu's 13,000, you know, almost 400. But your Tech Tree ships, Queen Elizabeth's 12,300, New Mexico 10,500, Fuso is, you know, 11,000, so quite a bit lower on the damage. Gun caliber 330 compared to like 356 on the Americans. The Fuso, Queen Elizabeth 381, Byron 380. So really low caliber. The pen's not great against battleships. I mean, it's not horrible, and if you have the commander that affects battleship pen, I think that would be beneficial in this one. But at range, I'm shooting a little bit, you know, top half of the ship. Close range, I think I got some brawling situations, maybe in this game, maybe in the second game, but there'll be some instances to check out. Close range, I find the AP against battleship armor to be quite effective, and you can get some pretty massive, you know, 20k salvos into those citadels. So that's interesting. I'm still shooting primarily AP, but, you know, you got to look for the situations where HE might be beneficial. Now, it's kind of built as a cruiser destroyer, or wrecker, I guess, on the load-in screen where they're kind of advertising the ship today. Some cruisers it does pretty good on. I mean, you get a lot of overpens. I suppose that's kind of the norm for a lot of battleships. But in certain situations, it can be quite deadly to cruisers. But I wouldn't shy away from fighting other battleships either. You know, it's not, I don't know if it's its primary role or not. I guess I've only played 12, 15 games. But I'm finding the battleship is fine as long as you're not getting flanked on the sides. That becomes a major problem. The armor doesn't seem to be particularly effective on the sides now. Should you be getting shot in the sides in any ship? Not really. But, you know, nose on, the armor performs pretty well. Is it Bismarck-esque? Is it Iowa-esque? No. And especially if you're bottom tier going against Colorados, Nagatos, ships of that kind of nature, you're going to want to be careful. You're not invincible, and you need to be able to manage those situations. And if you think you're going to be in a problematic situation, just try and avoid that. Because of the mobility, you can kind of control the engagements a little bit if you're utilizing the terrain and stuff like that. You know, the speed definitely helps with that. But on the whole, you know, if you're pointed not directly at your target, because they can punch through the nose, but if you give it like a, you know, 5-10 degree angle where those shells are just going to be kind of auto bouncing off the sides of your ship's armor, you know, you can be quite effective. Not invincible, though. I don't want anyone to go into this thinking all you do is park it nose in and you can kick back and relax like certain Tier 7 battleships that some of us love, some of us not as much. But, you know, hit points on the Dunkirk, you got 52,006, which is, again, pretty low. I mean, it's higher than the Bayern, but everything else at the tier is, you know, anywhere from a bit higher to quite a bit higher. You know, you get up to about 5,000 more on like the Mutsu, the Japanese, you know, the Arizona ships like that nature. And turning circle, it's not horrible. You got 630 on this, which is better than everything but the Bayern, I guess. So in terms of that, pretty mobile. Excuse me. Now my rudder is at 11.8, and again, I don't have the rudder shift module, so I'm hesitant to compare that against a lot of these ships because I suspect I have the rudder shift on a fair amount of those. But if you spec that out, it would probably have the best rudder shift in the tier for battleships. In fact, even not having it, it's, you know, looks like it's about second best, just a smidge behind the Arizona and the Mutsu. So mobility-wise, is kind of a, you know, one of the main pluses here. This play, I thought this was funny. I was kind of surprised this guy torped me. I forgot the Aoba had a lot steeper torp angles than the Mayoko and Mogami, which are those are the two tiers I played the bulk of my games on when I'm not grinding lines or checking out new premiums for you guys. So I thought because he was nosing on me or pointing forward towards me, if I snuck through that crack and blasted him, which I ended up doing, but I didn't expect those torps to be there, but luckily he shot him just a bit forward, and we avoided those. But taking a look at the Bayern here, I mean, this is a situation where you don't want to be in, you know, sideways to any sort of battleship, especially close range. I haven't been one shot in this thing, but you can take some pretty serious damage in situations like that, so I think I got away with one a little bit there. But yeah, I mean, stats-wise, it is what it is. And again, I think if you spec out a proper battleship commander and a better build on it, you know, it would shine a little bit more. But it does damage. You just kind of have to make sure you're staying alive. I haven't had any major barn burners. I think the next game's probably one of the top 2 or 3 games in terms of damage. This one's kind of about average for what I've been getting so far on the ship. And it's a very unique play style, so maybe I'm still getting used to it. But one thing I do want to point out on this ship is if you get in a kiting situation, which armor-wise is acceptable, you do have to be very careful because you don't have any turrets on the back, and your front 2 turrets have to swing 180 degrees in the front. If you're fighting from the rear, if you get forced to switch sides that your guns are pointing off of, it's going to take a little while. Now, turret traverse, I forgot to mention, is very good on this. You got 32.1 on my build for the 180 turn, which, I mean, the next closest is Mutsu 36. Most of them are in their 40s, 50s, even the New Mexico on my build tops up at 60. Those of you running Sims, I suppose, probably have a better turret traverse on that ship than I do. But very good turret traverse, but it's still, it's a battleship, so it's going to take a little while. So that I've gotten into those situations. Again, performance-wise, it's fine. It's just if you get forced to switch sides, either because of the terrain or you're getting close to the edge of the map, or something unexpected pops up on your side or whatever is kind of ambushing you, getting those guns around because they're all in the front does take a little while. So that's something to keep in mind. Yeah, and it's an interesting ship for sure. I've enjoyed playing it, and I think it does well. I mean, I don't think it's the strongest ship at the tier. At least I haven't been performing monstrously at it yet. But again, I hate to harp on the commanders over and over, but most of my battleship commanders are 11, I think they're all level 11 plus, so you got 2 inspirations, and the skills are a lot better. Generic commanders for battleships are really bad unless you're playing the Dewey Ram build, which is not recommended. But generics for destroyers, you can have a good destroyer build with the generic commander. Cruisers, you can have a decent build. Battleships, unless I'm missing something, I think the generic commanders are really bad for battleships. So it's kind of a rundown of the ship itself. Now let's take a look at this game on Neighbors, which I thought was interesting. Again, it's a fairly, at least out of my small sample size, a pretty decent game damage-wise. But I wound up in a little bit of a brawly situation, and we can comment on the pros and cons of that when it arises. So, being middle spawn, I'm going to do kind of a mini Iowa impression. No, I'm not going to pop it in reverse, put a brick on the gas pedal, and then go do my laundry or anything like a lot of Iowa players typically do. But I am kind of moving back to decrease the angle that ships can potentially blast me right off the bat. I do just kind of want to evaluate and see where ships are moving, because again, the armor schemes on this are strongest in the front, and because your guns are forward firing, you know, it's pretty advantageous to be pointed nose into your greatest threats, you know, for the majority of time. Now we do have an Iowa here that goes a little sideways. Someone blasted them pretty well. I managed to land a Citadel as well, along with, it looked like, a couple overpens. But I think if you had a commander that can really boost the accuracy on the ship, it could be quite dangerous to cruisers. For me, I'm not able to pinpoint those Citadels with this build with the reliability that I normally like to. Now, I don't know, until we get the whole French line, I'm not sure if accuracy is one of their strong suits. The Corbeil at Tier 3 was particularly inaccurate until I, until I boosted my Du Fournay up to level 7 and was able to put Cunningham as an inspiration to kind of help that accuracy a little bit. But I was expecting the able to kind of push around that island. He does slam on the brakes, but I was moving backwards to kind of increase the odds that he would have to skid through there before he was able to stop. Now he does push forward a little bit here and presents just enough of a target that he pops up and we're able to blast him there. So kind of a little bit of a misplay for him there. I mean, it is what it is. I see a lot of cruisers in general kind of pushing that middle island. I think that's a pretty aggressive play right off the bat, and I don't usually see it working out. But whatever, we're able to eliminate him. Now I'm pushing forward a little bit here, and I'm trying to get in range of some of these targets. You got to keep an eye on the map with the ship if you're going to be playing nose in. You got to make sure you're not overextending yourself, because as soon as those firing angles coming at you become, like this one right here, that's a problem. And I didn't account for that Byron being able to shoot for me. When I initially started pushing in a little bit, he wasn't spotted yet, and he did become spotted when I was kind of aiming in and firing the gun. So bit of a misplay there, just taking my eye off the map for a little too long. Cost me now. This is it's not quite center of the map yet, but it's a central position, and again, because you need to really be able to kind of just point your ship at the threats. The more centralized you get, obviously the harder that is to accomplish. So maybe a little bit aggressive there, but I was just trying to keep these targets in range and be able to acquire 2-3 different ships to shoot at, while maintaining a fairly rearward position in terms of where I was located. Now this New Mexico, I initially thought he might have been AFK. I do see him backing up a little bit there. If I was dedicated to whittling him down, that would be a candidate to switch to HE. You can see now, a lot of battleships aren't going to do a lot of damage there, but if you aim the guns right, even at that angle, if you're hitting kind of into the deck superstructure, you can get fairly good damage a lot of times. But these guns and the ammo that they shoot, it's not really designed to be doing anything along those lines. Now Broadsides, kind of the name of the game, again, for any ship, that's what you're looking for, but especially for this one, the weaker armor on the sides is going to allow you to kind of punch through. Byron has pretty strong belt armor, at least that's my impression. I don't know that for a fact because we don't have armor view, but this ship I'm trying to shoot kind of upper hull, get some of those shots into the superstructure, and you can get some fairly good volleys doing that, 8 to 10, 12k damage, depending on how the shells land. I don't know, sometimes you fire the guns on this thing and it's a pretty widespread, and sometimes you fire them and it's a nice tight group, so there's a lot of RNG into how the shells are going to come out of these guns, but it's just the nature of it. It's just kind of battleships in general, but this ship and the Corbeil, seems to be kind of wild in terms of you never know exactly what you're going to get until the trigger's pulled. But we are just shy of our HP now, and we're still fairly in the match. Our team is losing by a couple ships at this point, and I'm trying to get behind this island, use it as cover. And then what I want to do, ideally, is just barely poke out and then engage them one by one without putting myself in a massive crossfire position. Now this enemy, Koenig, obviously, is in a perfect because of where I'm positioned against him, I am in a perfect crossfire against him. He's fighting my other battleship that's over there, so because his attention's elsewhere, I'm going to take a shot, just hope to help my teammate get rid of him. Because once I get rid of that guy, then we're going to be able to focus on the bulk of their force, which this is a tier 5 game, tier 4, tier 5 game. They're employing the black hole strategy, popular strategy on tier 7, but you don't see it as much in the middle tiers, at least in my experience. So that's a situation where you could have potentially fanned out had we had more ships available, but if you just take a glance upwards, map control is not really an option at this point. So again, this is kind of the position game you got to play. Now the Bayern's kind of lowest health. I can't see what shot me right off the bat to the right, but I'm figuring if me and whoever's shooting at this guy can finish this guy off, then I can kind of turn my attention to the right. They do have a destroyer. I don't know if you noticed, he's been quietly eliminating ships off. He's started on the southwest spawn. I've been aware of him the whole time, and that's part of the reason I was moving to the northeast on this map. Try and keep as much distance away from him as possible. In my, my first impressions of the ship, I don't find it to be great at fighting destroyers, but it could have just been the situations that I found myself. Ideally, I'd like the other ships, especially the cruiser on my team, to kind of support me and figure out where that ship is, but it is what it is. So because that New Mexico kind of pulled forward broadside, I'm able to blast him there. We didn't get any citadels in that salvo, but it was still a 10k damage salvo, so you can definitely do some damage with these guns. And I think brawling with battleships close range, if they're kind of misplaying and giving you broadsides, and I've had other games where we're not featuring them tonight, but multiple citadels into broadside battleships close range, it's pretty easy to score those shots even with a commander that's not really spec'd out for accuracy. But here you can see I'm just kind of backing up, and we do need to manage the load. Now we do have this, I believe it's a Königsberg sneaking up around this island. I was aware of him, keeping an eye on the map. My plan is to blast him right around here. Now I'm aware of what he's trying to do. He's trying to go around the corner then torp me. So you'll see on my speed indicator, as soon as I think he's about to go around, I'm going to gun it. And as soon as the play's about to start, I kind of get distracted by that destroyer. I was considering shooting at him, but Königsberg is the more immediate threat, even though the destroyer, long-term for our team's chances of winning, is more important to eliminate. And because I kind of yanked off my aim and then quickly tried to kill that Königsberg before he could launch, we actually missed the citadel, and that allows him to live. But I am pushing forward again with that prop mod aiding me, and I'm aware he's trying to torp out the other side, so we blast him through the nose and finish him off. But that that destroyer has been on my mind pretty much the majority of the match, just trying to figure out where he was, and it was only a matter of time until he came crawling my way. So at this point, obviously, things aren't looking good. We're just going to try and get a little bit more damage. You can see my, quote-unquote friendly battleship. He's been chasing Nuremberg up to the northeast corner. If you're actually trying to win the game, chasing a ship that's kiting away is not going to do it, and the cruiser at that point in the game is so irrelevant to the outcome. Yeah, he can harass you with HE, and I understand this Koenig's low health, so I'm not going to harp on him too much, but this is just basic target selection. To win a game, you have to understand what is important, and you need to be evaluating the map at all times and be able to say, is this guy that I'm chasing off, at all relevant to the outcome? And of course the answer is no. So not that we would have won that or anything, but had that guy been able to support me, put himself in a position to get crossfires on those battleships, perhaps we could have sunk one or two of them, and then you never know. But anyway, that's a look at the Dunkirk. Hope you did enjoy it. I like the ship. I might put up some more footage later on here in the near term. We still have a couple more German battleships and a couple more French cruisers to cover. But if you did enjoy this one, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, you should consider subscribing. There's a lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions for me, comments, leave them below. I'd love to hear from you guys. And I'll see y'all later. Alright, peace.